and the series that we're in called Second Wind. And really, the purpose of this is that God desires us to pursue Him and walk by faith. And then beautifully, He gives us examples that we can follow. Hebrews 12 will call these, we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. This past week, we looked at a very unique character in the Bible, Hebrews 11, verses 5 and 6, and it's the story of Enoch. What a, what a crazy, crazy example this guy is. He walked with God for over 365 years with such intimacy that others noticed him, and he was transferred from earth to eternity just instantly. All of a sudden, people were trying to find him, and where did he go? He was taken up into heaven. He did not even see death. Now, uh, these stories give us great examples of character that we can look like and strive to be like. But also, it gives us the opportunity to ask some very important questions. Last week's video commentary, as we looked at the example of creation, it gave us the opportunity to discuss how old the earth is. Today, Hebrews 11, 5 and 6 gives us the opportunity to ask the really big question, does God exist? How do we answer or respond to that question? Sip of coffee, then I'll keep going. These questions are really important for us to discover and to have confidence in how to respond to. Um, it's very natural that anyone would ask the question, is there a God? And in fact, the very fact that people ask that question is a suggestion that there is a God. Notice I use the word suggest and not proof. Uh, many scholars, theologians, and apologists would even call that the ontological argument. The very idea of God is a suggestion that there is a God. It doesn't necessarily funnel or clarify the one true living God versus gods of other religions, but it does suggest that, hey, listen, there is a God if we even discuss the idea of a God. Another argument would be the teleological argument, which really speaks to design versus designer. And we talked about this a little bit on Sunday, but even more appropriate that we discuss this. I'm actually on vacation this week, which is why these last two have been at the beach. But even it's fitting and appropriate that when I would look and consider the expanse of the ocean, the power of the sky, the magnitude of the thunder and the lightning, which we heard last night. Um, when we look at the perfect design of creation, whether it be the distance from the earth to the sun, whether it be the design of our bodies to regenerate and heal, there's on the symbiotic relationships of the sloth to the tree. Research it if you want to know more. Uh, each of these don't clearly prove the one true living God, but they suggest, wow, there must be a designer or a creator behind this beautiful creation. Uh, this is powerful. Now, we could go on and on looking at different ideas or arguments that suggest the existence of God, but I want to unpack for us today when and how these are helpful and when and how they're beneficial to use. Uh, when we look at this scale of disciple making, or Ingalls scale of evangelism to be more specific, if I have someone that is very far from God, maybe they even claim to be agnostic or even atheistic, I may find it beneficial to use the moral argument or the design or teleological argument to just plant in them the idea that, hey, there is a God. Uh, it would be a leap for me to jump from that to the person of Christ. I should tell them of Christ, that I'm not discouraging us from that at all. I'm just simply saying there is great benefit from an apologetic standpoint to utilize those arguments, especially for someone who denies the existence of God, to help walk them through logically with an explanation to suggest, hey, There's got to be something for you to consider here of a creator, a designer. Um, the moral argument can be used as well. Uh, I think this is where there is potential danger. Most of us as believers, when we try to argue the existence of God, we immediately go to our experience um, without realizing we're actually deploying like an existential argument that would say, well, I've experienced God. I've been to church. I have felt the emotion of the Holy Spirit in my life. Uh, if I want to argue the existence of God purely from an existential standpoint, well, then the person who doesn't believe God exists can do the same. So a pure existential argument is not really beneficial for the person who doesn't even believe that God exists. It is, however, very beneficial for the person who is either closer to their soul being regenerated or has a relationship with God, because then we can rely on those experiences to help us then find proof. But ultimately, it is a step of faith. I love some old hymns, but I must confess he Lives is not one of my favorites because like the anchoring line from the chorus is you ask me how I know he lives within my heart. Well, it really is feeding an existential mindset. There's better responses that we can give toward that because ultimately, while there is benefit to looking at the examples of Enoch, we naturally may want to say, well, then now I want to be like Enoch. Enoch received the reward and the promise of God because he wanted to be with God. God's faithfulness and our desire to be with him, to be like him, to know him, and to pursue him will actually help us more quickly experience the joy and peace that comes from the God who rewards those who diligently seek him rather than simply trying to be like Enoch. I hope this has been an encouragement. I need another cup of coffee this morning. I hope this has been an encouragement to you to consider, uh, does God exist? Yes, he does. We could start from one end of the spectrum, from a designer, teleological or ontological or moral argument, beginning through a progression of understanding and seeing who he is, experiencing who he is, and walking with him. But ultimately, the proof is found by faith. Faith and trusting that he is who he says he is, that he did what he said he did. That is at the core of our walk relationship with him. It is by faith. Listen, I realize today, as we have sought to answer a question, it may have brought more questions on. And that's fair and understandable. And if that's true for you, reach out to us. Check us out on our website. Explore the website for more information. Check back for more video commentaries. Go back and listen to last week's sermon. Stay in touch. God bless. We'll see you next time.